Hey, welcome back to my allotment garden as we near the end of July. And what a month it's been. It's been so incredibly hot and there have been a lot of challenges here on the allotment. And to say I've not been on the allotment much this month would be an understatement because it's just been too hot. You know, I work a full-time job, which means I don't get a lot of time here as it is. And I'm not the sort of person to get to the allotment at 5:30 to water before going to work. So, it's just been such a nightmare trying to keep the plot hydrated, which means I have to do it after work. And it's the reason why there's not been as many videos this month, because I haven't had as much time, because when I have been here, I've just been watering. And I'm actually just harvesting my broad beans, which I probably should have done about a week or two ago. But it's just been a bit too warm. So they're coming out today and they're a pretty good size. I sowed these in the springtime and the variety is called Crimson Flower broad bean. And I'm going to take these out now, and in their space I'm going to actually plant some of my chili plants because I've got quite a lot in the polytunnel, and I just think, you know, if I can give them a bit more room and make use of the space out here, I'll plant some in the ground and see how they do. Because if this hot weather is going to continue for the rest of the season, then I don't have to worry about them not getting enough warmth. But yeah, I think it did actually reach 39 degrees C here in Nottingham last Tuesday, which was just incredibly hot. And we're not built for that kind of temperature, and in my flat, I live on the top floor of a small block of flats that faces south, and it took a good few days for our flat to cool down. Even at night time the following day or the 2 days after, it was still about 34 degrees indoors at 9 o'clock at night, which was unbearable. You know, our houses are built to retain the temperature, to stay warm because of our cooler winters. And yeah, I know that some people are, are used to this weather because they have those temperatures all the time, but we cannot cope. But despite the weather, the plot hasn't actually fared too bad. And I've got plenty of raw beans to harvest, so that's good news. So these were all sown in the springtime, which is why I'm a little bit later harvesting some of these. But they're looking pretty good, haven't gone too far over, so hopefully they don't taste too woody, and still quite fresh and juicy, we'll see. It's actually quite breezy today and it's really refreshing after all the warmth we've had, but we've just had barely any rain. As I'm sure if you watched a lot of other allotment gardeners, they'll say the same, because I think we've had about, I don't know, it rained overnight a few nights ago, and we've had a brief shower here and there, but just not enough to really soak the ground. And that's just been the theme for most of this year, to be honest. It's been such a dry year. Even in spring and in April we didn't have any showers. So it's just starting to really stress the importance of mulch and collecting rainwater wherever you can, because as the climate changes, this is what we're going to be facing much more regularly now, is this severe change in climate and conditions. The winds, I've never known it to be such a windy year. The winds seem to be much more fierce than they ever were. And just this prolonged period of drought, it's pretty worrying. But anyway, let's not get on too much of a downer, eh? I've still got food to harvest, and we've got a lot to see on the plot because everything's surged into growth. All the warm loving crops, they've gone a little bit bonkers. I'm definitely going to have to freeze some of these broad beans. So what I'll do is I'll blanch them in a pan of boiling water first, and then cool them down in ice water before freezing. I've noticed so many new bird nests over the recent months as well, and I actually spotted the long-tailed tits were flying all amongst these broad bean plants a few weeks ago, and I didn't do anything to prevent or remove the black fly, and I just left it to it basically, and the birds, they came along and all these little long-tailed tits pecked off all of the black fly, and now they're absolutely black fly free. As much as I love nasturtium, they can very quickly overtake a bed. So I am actually going to be cutting some of this back because it's spread everywhere. Well, I've spaced out some of my peppers. I've gone for the milder varieties that won't require as much heat as the ones that are in the tunnel. And I'm going to plant these a little bit later because I've just disturbed the ants and they're now having a right old party below my feet. But I've got quite a good haul of broad beans. So yeah, I think now it's time to actually start the tour and see how the plot has survived that heat wave and see what else is growing and blooming. All right, what have we got? As I say, it's quite breezy today, so I do apologise if that is picked up on the microphone quite a bit. But there's not too much going on in this border at the moment. A lot of it's starting to go over. But going up the old plum tree, do you remember I planted this? It's a Kobe scandens. It's a very vigorous annual climber that has, this one has purple, big purple bells towards the end of summer, and it's grown all the way up there in just a couple of months. So I'm really hoping that's going to fill out and bloom for me quite nicely very soon. Otherwise you'll find a lot of these beds are in a shocking state of weeds and clearing because I've just not been up here as much. But in this bed I do have 2 squash plants, and they're on a little bit of a smaller side. I planted these ones a bit later, but there is one down there I've spotted. There it is. I believe that is the sweet dumpling, I think. It could be that one. But the blueberry, that's finished fruiting now. I had such a fantastic crop from that. And the dwarf apple that I keep in a pot, well, that's still got some lovely tiny little fruits on. All the foxgloves are now starting to go to seed. When they start to turn all papery and brown like this, it's a great time to sort of sprinkle them in areas of your garden where you want to grow more foxgloves. And my favourite way of doing this is to wear a pair of gloves, because remember these are poisonous if you eat them, so don't go licking your fingers. Take a pair of secateurs, snip off that stem, and wherever you want your foxgloves to grow, shake it out. They love to grow in part shaded areas, so I'm actually going to take this and the other one down to the wildlife corner because I want more of them there next year. And they are a biannual, so they'll take a season to grow their leaves and then they'll flower the following season. The strawberry cages are absolutely covered in weeds. It's so easy for this to get out of control and takes very little time when you've got bindweed against you. So yeah, that'll probably have a big tidy towards the end of the season now. And something over here I want to show you. All of the honesty that was flowering nice and white in the springtime is now going to seed. All those papery seed heads. I know a few people did want some seeds of this, so I probably will actually save some and share them around because it is a fantastic flower. And look at all those berries. Oh my gosh, I didn't bring a Tupperware to harvest berries today. This one here is in reaching distance. Woo, where are you? They're usually, I'm sure they're not usually ready until about August. So maybe this is a result of the warm, dry weather we're having. They're so big and juicy, look at that. Do love blackberries. Blackberry and apple crumble, quite often you'll find the first fruits might not be the sweetest, but we've had enough sunshine, so here goes. Yeah. Oh, second one's a bit tartar, but definitely on the sweet side. So I must remember to bring more Tupperware to the pot, because we've got berries again, which is fantastic, and there are just so many in the hedge this year. How are your hedges looking? I think this weather's just been absolutely great for all of the fruits this year, like my apple tree that's absolutely covered as well. The cosmos are all over my plot this year. I sowed extras in case my dahlias that I mulched didn't make it, and the result is just an absolute meadow of flowers for the bees, and they're absolutely loving it. I love the foliage, I love the flowers, the varieties. It's just one of my absolute favourites, especially on a slightly breezy day like this, and they'll just blow around in the wind. So if I continue down, we've got my Sweetcorn. This is, I think it's called Early Fortune, it's an early one. That's the first one that's actually beginning to flower. Oh, actually a few of them are now. These have grown so much in recent weeks, and it's one that I've been made sure I'm watering quite well. Although there are some at the back, they're a lot shorter. So I just hope that they all flower and release their tassels, you know, at the same time, so that we get even pollination, because obviously it's the wind that pollinates these. So yes, but we'll see. I just hope the others catch up. Ooh, that wind's blowing. But look at the apple tree. It's still absolutely covered, and I've tried to thin some of the fruits. The June drop didn't do a great job of it, but up there, look, I need to get a ladder, because there's a cluster of about 4, and I need to have sets of 2 so that they actually get to a good size. Otherwise you have lots of apples, but they're all tiny. I've just gone a bit of a wider angle here. Oh, the raspberries, look, the first Joan Jay. Oh, it still needs about another day or 2 to fully ripen. Still a bit hard, but they are all about to flower and fruit for me. I can hear the goldfinches in the tree behind me, and this month's been an amazing month for nature encounters. If you've been following me on Instagram, and particularly on my stories, I mostly tend to post there these days, the amount of bird nests that I've had this year. I think I've counted 5 nests so far that I know of. There's definitely would have been more. But for example, over the last few weeks, I found a blackbird nest right by the hedge, by the gate, and they all fledged. And then I saw some wrens in the big hedge just behind me, and one evening I could hear them, and I knew there was a nest there. And then just about 20 minutes later, I could see all the fledglings that had literally just left the nest, and they were fluttering all amongst the trees, and the parents were feeding them, and it was absolutely amazing. But not only that, I saw face to face a hedgehog, and I had my heart in my mouth at that moment, because I haven't seen a hedgehog on my allotment in person ever, and I've been here 8 years now. And obviously this allotment site is quite special because they're all completely hedged, so we know that there are hedgehogs here, and obviously I saw one on my wildlife camera that one time in spring. But it was dusk and I was just about to pack up, and I heard something in the bushes, and I thought it might have been one of the fledgling blackbirds. So I sort of sat down, I didn't want to spook it. And then I saw something rustling, and I was like, what on earth is that? Because it was so textured, and I thought, oh, maybe it's a song thrush because of that sort of speckled chest they have with different colours. And then sure enough, this little, I say little, it was quite a large hedgehog, came round, sniffling its nose round. It was so sweet, and it's just made, I don't know, I have all these encounters with wildlife recently. It just makes it real for me why I do things the way I do. You know, I don't use slug pellets, you know, I don't get rid of the black fly from my broad beans, and you know, I just think that the more you can help the balance of the nature and the wildlife by providing a few pests, you're encouraging those predators to come in, and it's just been so rewarding to see that in action, because I've got that balance right. And sure enough, it does take time, you know, especially if you're in an area that doesn't have any birds. But it is so worth it. And just to have those encounters, it's been an incredible month for wildlife encounters for me. Excuse me for rambling on about that, but it's something that obviously you probably know is really close to my heart and the way I garden. So yes, let's carry on with the tour now. Underneath the apple tree, the rhubarb's starting to go over. That's a hellebore plant there that's doing okay. But what's not doing okay is in this large pot I have some nasturtium. That's the purple emperor. It did have a load of flowers on it, good flush, and then they've gone over. Looks like we're going to get a few more perhaps soon, but I think the heat's made this struggle. And I've been watering it every day, because willows, which is what this is, are renowned for loving water. You quite often see our native willows alongside streams and lakes, because they don't mind having fairly wet feet. But look at the top. I think because it's been windy and dry, it's just really sucking all the moisture out of these plants that are particularly water loving. So been a bit of a struggle for that one. It's not going to die or kill it off, it's just having a bit of a bad time, but it'll be fine. Oh, I just scared the goldfinch, sorry. Oh no, and the bird bath's empty. There we are, hopefully the birds will come back now for a little drink. But over in the wildlife corner, well, it's all starting to go over a little bit now. You know, this area sort of has its big huzzah in spring and late spring. We've got the field scabious here. They're flowering, the butterflies and pollinators love that. And there's a lot of thistles, which, funnily enough, the finches do love the seeds from it, so I won't be pulling all of them. Hello, bumblebee. Oh, it looks like it's actually starting to grey over a little bit, which is quite pleasant, because it was a lot warmer than I was expecting today. And in this bed outside the shed, we've got all my dahlias, and these are looking so healthy, especially in comparison to the others that I've got at the top of the plot. These ones escaped the slug damage a lot more. Perhaps it's because my hedgehog friend's been at them. But yes, not many flowers yet, but lots and lots of buds. Although if I just scoot round this side, we've got the first ones that do flower, which is almost always this one, the creme de cassis. Just behind me here is where I grow my carrots every year in a raised bed, and I sowed them quite late this year, and some of them germinated, some of them didn't, and I thought, oh well, there's still time to do a second sowing, so I've added some more seedlings. And it's been the trickiest thing to keep alive, because when we had those hot temperatures and the seedlings were like this big, you know, I had to keep them hydrated and cool, so I cover them up with a little bit of netting, which I need to do again to protect it from the carrot root fly. But they've survived miraculously, so it looks like I'm going to have a good crop of carrots towards the end of the year, because last year it was a bit of a fail on the carrot front for me. I got COVID when I sowed the seeds late August and didn't get any because I couldn't keep them damp enough. So this year I was on it eventually. And yeah, I've got 3 varieties in here, let me show you. And that's actually another reason for cutting back some of this nasturtium, because they end up growing over the bed and shading out these young carrots. So on this right hand side we've got Amsterdam forcing, then we've got an organic red variety in the middle, and then on the left side we've got Autumn King, and that's going to be a very big traditional orange kind of carrot. So yes, it's important not to disturb the foliage too much so that we don't encourage the carrot root fly to come over. All the Achillea's now lost its colour, and it's got a bit of a strange smell to it that I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest. And in this bed we've now got cosmos and dahlias. This is where the garlic grew that I've since harvested last month. Obviously the peppers are going to be growing in the ground over there once I dig the earth and plant them. I don't think I'm going to keep them in their pots. And then my courgettes, which have been doing really, really well. We're in the glut season now. And look at that, I've got another one to pick and 3 more on the way, and this is a variety called Banana. Just briefly, outside the shed, my carnivorous plants doing well. I've had to keep these topped up with rainwater so they don't dry out. But these are for my pond/bog project that I'll be starting hopefully in the next week or 2, now that it's a lot cooler. So yes, look out for that video in the coming weeks. This has got to be one of my favourite features on the plot this year. I've brought back the big supports for my squash plants, and I call it Squash Mountain. And they're almost so close to reaching the top now. And I've just got to keep winding that leading vine on the string supports, and then the little tendrils will help cling on to it. And yeah, what it's doing is making most of the space. Growing vertically means you have a lot more room, and I've also got a plant that's growing underneath it as well. I found in previous years when I did it that it keeps the plants much more healthy because there's much more ventilation underneath the plants, and they're less likely to get powdery mildew, or at least they succumb to it much later in the year than when they usually do. And yeah, I've already got a few fruits on here. I can see the cheeky curry down there. They're quite an early variety, so they're already quite big and close to ripening as well. But yeah, it just always astounds me how quick these plants grow. It's such a jungle plant, but yeah, do be careful because those leaves do feel a bit coarse on your skin. Down in my salad bucket, this sort of 40-50 litre pot that I grow all my salads in, it's been doing so well that I think all that heat from last week has sent it into bolting. I did my best to keep it as damp as I could, and I couldn't have probably kept it any damper. And I also put some cover over it to create a bit of shade, but it's their time to go to seed now. You can't prevent the inevitable, but I do have more seeds growing that I can plant it back up with once I take these out. This bed's a bit of a mishmash and a mess. I've got some, what are those? They are beans. Those are balotti beans. So these are for podding and drying and using in soups and stews and all sorts. But these won't be ready until early autumn time, once they've all grown and dried. Also in here, amongst all of those forget-me-not seedlings, I've got some parsnips, which I sowed quite late in sort of like the second week of June. But as long as I get some parsnips of any size, I'll be happy. It's just been a challenge to keep this bed damp whilst the seedlings are so young. I've also got a few beetroot in here that I self-seeded, direct sown even. Woo, look at that parsnip plant blow around. That's all dried up now, so I should be able to harvest the seeds from those heads and use those for growing next year. Just make sure the mice can't get to them, because last year I dried them and finished them off in the shed, but the mouse got to them before I did. But it's such a fantastic architectural plant. But it's about time for that to come down now. And next to Squash Mountain are my sweet peas, and I thought these were goners because I put them in the ground and they didn't do anything for so long. And I think, oh wow, that smell, I can smell it from here. They've struggled with the lack of moisture because, you know, peas and sweet peas, they love their heads in the sun but their roots in the shade, cool and damp. I think they needed the warmth to get them going. And whereas these are now blooming their socks off, my edible peas didn't last very well because of the temperature. So we'll see how these guys fare as long as I keep cutting all those flowers. So then we've got more cosmos, my buckets of potatoes that are starting to flop over now. That's a sign that they're about ready, and also that the wind has been picking up. I also noticed that I had a spare random potato that something had harvested for me. So what I did was I actually put this netting on the surface to prevent the rats from digging, and also even though I did apply a mulch, it just bounces some of that sunlight off from cooking the soil, so it helps sort of retain some of that moisture and stop it from drying out so quick when we had that hot weather, which I think has helped done the trick. But it's about time I harvested some more of my shallots because yeah, they are delicious and it's one of my favourites. But yeah, as for the peas, it was not a great year. Look at that. This is completely natural, you know, they're quite a short season crop, but I didn't really harvest many because I think, again, the challenge was keeping the ground wet enough, and because we're quite close to the hedge and a tree here, the ground is quite dry anyway, and with that dry, hot soil, the peas just didn't really stand much of a chance, so they were much of nothing really this year. So that's a bit of a shame. Up at the raised beds where my dahlias grow, well, some plants are looking a little bit small, like the one all the way down there, but others are looking not too bad. They did have a bit of slug damage early on in the season, which set them back. And I don't think I've been watering this bed as much as I have the other one at the bottom. Oh God, those brambles are massive. I need to cut them back. But yes, hopefully we'll still get some flowers real soon. Just perhaps not as big as a display as previous years. But obviously it was my first year mulching them and leaving them in over the winter time. So it was a good experiment to see how they fared. Now then, inside the polytunnel, we've got tomatoes growing, a mix of some ornamentals, all the chilies on the left, and at the back, my cucumbers. Now, I was a little bit later sowing my tomatoes this year, and I know a lot of people are already harvesting their tomatoes, whereas mine are still ripening and fruiting. I don't have any ripe ones just yet, but they're all on their way and they're growing quite well. Lots of trusses, and this year I'm sticking to just a few different varieties. Which one's this one? This one's actually Gardener's Delight, so I'm taking it back to a few old faithfuls that I know do really, really well. But that's a lovely little truss. And I've not been so good at nipping out all the side shoots because it's just been so warm, and obviously the polytunnel's been over sort of 40 degrees some days. So I've just not been able to get in here. But it's important to keep up the ventilation. Ooh, hello, that's going to be a nice one. So yeah, I've been removing some of the lower branches and the leaves now just because it improves the airflow around the base of the plant below the first truss of flowers. So yeah, they're all on their way, looking good. And my cucumbers, well, I'm just really enjoying these as plants this year. I've got some fruits further down that are coming. Where are we? That one. So this is a variety called Early Fortune, but I'm also growing the Crystal Lemon, which I grew before, which is this one here, that nice round variety. Crystal Lemon Cucumber. Nice small size, that one. And as for the chilies, well, that's my Pepper Peach. Got lots more fruits coming. And to be honest, the plants don't always look too healthy. Some of them did have a bit of a problem with thrips early in the year when they were still very small plants at home. But they're still recovering quite well, I think, despite that. Although some of these fruits, I think because of the hot weather, they've got a little bit sun damaged and scorched. You can't quite see it on the camera, but the skins are a little bit puckered and a little bit like they've dried out. Oh, look, we've got some of the peach ones ripening now. Sugar Rush Peach, that one. But yeah, I'm just really excited for this year's chilli harvest. And also my ghost chilli, which is going to be incredibly hot, is flowering. Still quite a dwarf size, and I'm keeping it in a smaller pot because I think it will help it fruit better. I don't really want to focus it on becoming too big a plant because I don't really want a lot of these chilies, if I'm honest. I think I'm only going to need them quite sparingly, so Yeah, this one's still in a 5 litre pot, whereas most of my others are now in 10 litre pot. And over here we've got the ricin plant that I'm growing for the tropical foliage as an ornamental and nothing else, because this is a highly toxic plant. And I will be planting it down in the seating area real soon, so I can surround myself with these big jungly leaves with that red colour to them. Can't believe how quickly they've grown in recent weeks. It's staggering. Underneath the tomatoes I've got lots of basil. That's the purple basil there. Oh, that one's just about to flower, so I'm going to nip that out. And then this one, the enormous leafed basil. Honestly, I can't get over the size. I really need to make some pesto with this, because it's going to make a big batch, that's for sure. And I've got quite a few of these plants all the way down under here, look. This is a tomato that everybody really speaks quite highly of, and it's quite tricky to get hold of the seed, so I was quite lucky to be given some from Chris Fowler, who grows a lot of chilies. But this is called a Black Beauty, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to tasting it, although I don't actually eat tomatoes raw which surprises a lot of people. Oh, I thought that was one then, but no, it's a blackberry. Well, that one's ready, so I'll enjoy that. This one here that's covered in lots of tiny little buds is going to be my red Scotch bonnet. So I love a hot sauce, and I'm really hoping I get enough of these this year to make some good batches of it, because that's going to be nice and spicy. So there we are, that's how the pot is looking at the end of July 2022. Well, that's all from me today. I'm going to get home with my raw beans and start podding them. But thank you so much for watching. I really hope that your gardens are surviving this heat wave that we've been having and extreme weather conditions. How has it been where you are? Perhaps you're in another country, in a different part of the world. Do let me know what you've been harvesting and how your garden is growing, because I'd love to hear from you. But yes, stay tuned for the pond/bog garden project that'll be coming hopefully pretty soon now. And yeah, I shall see you on the next one. See you later.